I'm the Speed Lord. Oh, yeah!
Welcome back to the Speed Lords podcast. I promise we're not dead. We're just infrequent. The speed in Speed Lord refers to the speed of the game, not the speed of the uploads. I'm here, as always, as ever, with the illustrious, attractive, and now married Meepmoto27. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Not really playing Yu-Gi-Oh anymore, but I still keep Speed Duels. It's better than TCG. Tell you that much.
You've renounced your humanity. You've finally broken free from the shackles of Saruya.
Pretty much.
We hope to all get there someday. Today we're talking about, I don't know, all the stuff that's happened recently.
The fact that there's an actual metagame for this hell format now.
I'm going to miss, wild speculation and getting paid for it by YUGIOH Pro Deck. At least now when I'm chewed out on Facebook, I can point to specific things and say, there, you idiots, I don't care what you think.
Finally, we've dispelled the myth that Blue Eyes is the best deck. It only took, 2 main set releases or something like that.
But Meep Dazif said, and we said on the last episode.
Hey, I still think it was better before this new set.
Certainly. There was a period of time where Blue Eyes was the best deck, and that's the best you're going to get out of us.
But now, Ready for Intercepting is a card, Lucky Day is a card.
We are just sitting in the format. We are wrist deep in the Lucky Day Ready for Intercepting format. But before we get into our impressions of the format and our understanding of what's good and what's mediocre, I want to talk to you a little bit about the NAWCQ, which I attended for 2 wonderful, blissful days last June. So for those of you that haven't heard this spiel already, my NAWCQ visit was cut short by a particularly greedy individual who had the audacity to invite me to his wedding, which was the same day as day 2.
Sorry.
No, it was... If given the choice between drinking myself silly and playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I will always choose the former. But because of that, I didn't have a lot of incentive to try hard in the main event and got to spend a fair amount of time in and around the side events, the most notable of which was the Speed Duel event. The NAWCQ, in a lot of ways, was the proving ground for this event at a competitive level, alongside with all other WCQs. But of course, no event is as large as the NA one, though the EU ones certainly come close, and it was a smash hit there. It was handled... could have been handled better, I will say.
So just to be clear, how large were the events at the NAWCQ? Because I know at Euros, or at least at German Nationals, they had a 32-man flight or something like that.
It was particularly odd. They began by announcing that Speed Duels would be a 16-person event, but unfortunately for them, they had released a PR report the night before that said that Speed Duels were going to be an 8-person event. And as a result, there was this huge confusion, and that led to decidedly few Speed Duel events being run on Friday and being run concurrently, as they realized suddenly the 16-man had to be split into 2 8-mans. But by and large, most of the events were 8-person flights. You had to go undefeated to win.
Okay, so that is something to take into consideration when we look at the results.
Having said that, the results from NAWCQ were pretty definitive because the same couple of people kept winning all of the tournaments. Unfortunately, because I was dedicated to playing in the main event, I only got to play 2, because only 2 were hosted on Friday. 4 individual ones were hosted, but they were split into these 2-person flights and cast really late, so there wasn't repeat interest because there were so few judges they couldn't just run them over and over again. I scrubbed out of the first one in the first match due to a particularly bad misplay on my part. I was just giddy with excitement for being able to play Speed Duels. And the second one I lost in finals. But almost all of them on day 1 were won by the same person, Jordan Palmer, a very interesting person I met at the tournament. Very cool, was very open about his thoughts on the metagame. And his profile, of course, is up on YouTube. I urge you to go check it out. And the Yugi Bros people, who, while I didn't play Saturday, was informed that they kind of ran the tables on that event. You can see their profile on their channel as well, and I urge you to do so. Yugi Bros is one of the very few Yu-Gi-Oh channels putting out consistent Speed Duel content, and always want to shout that out whenever possible. In general, it just ended up being a format with a ton of interest that, because of poor judge allocation and unconfirmed parameters for how many people could join, what the side deck situation was, etc., generated less interest and fired less frequently than it should have.
Yeah, and I think that this shouldn't really be too surprising considering how Konami has handled essentially every other vague attempt at something that isn't just advanced constructed in their history, is that they just do it through poorly handled and understaffed side events with low amounts of prizing at YCS's only.
Yeah, so for what it's worth, at the very least, the support for this format has been reasonable. It's been larger than I think any other alternative format that's ever been hosted, the bar for which is pretty low because now it just means you're clearing like generation duels. And the standalone sets and OTS prove that Konami is willing to invest in speed duels. I can only hope they take the mismanagement at the NAWCQ as evidence that they should be more careful about how they run events and not evidence that people aren't interested in the format.
Yeah, and I think hopefully as we move into the 2019-2020 YCS season, we start seeing these speed duel side events crop up as a staple at YCSs and even potentially with larger not 8-man flight tournaments like we saw at German Nats.
Can we please get a 64-man speed duel win-a-card?
A Swiss event. That would be really nice because I think that's just something, to sort of go slightly off topic, that Konami really has never grasped with their alternate formats, is to treat them like a real format instead of like a shitty gimmick, which is sort of how they've treated Generation Duels and how they've treated traditional, the 6 times they've probably run that format ever, and how they're treating speed duels right now.
How they've treated the Duel Links format.
Right, and I think that, sure, it makes sense for maybe those other formats where it is just a gimmick and you pull together a random deck out of your bulk, but this one has actual product that they're moving, and it's a fully separate format on par with, you know, something like an alternate format in Magic where there's, you know, like Commander or something where they're putting out full separate products for it. But unlike Wizards, they just don't run real events for it. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Is pretty much all competitive, so you want to have an actually competitive space to play it, and I think that's the big thing that's missing right now from the format.
That's true. Management aside, I am happy that they did run this event. I hope that they will additionally start kind of paying closer attention to OTSs and making sure that they're actually running speed duel events. Because fostering a healthy speed duel community begins at local game stores. And I know a lot of the top posts on the Speed Duel Reddit and the Discord and the Facebook are almost entirely like, where can I play this format? I'm really interested. I've just come back from a 10-year hiatus, but I can't find anywhere that's willing to let me normal summon Amazona Swordswoman, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I think that even where I live in Southern California, which is a really large area for Yu-Gi-Oh! With probably 15 shops in the region, there's one local that runs speed duel tournaments, and that's honestly just sort of embarrassing that Konami just doesn't really give any effort in pushing the format to stores to the point where just none of them are running hit.
Like, I don't want to crack down on stores because obviously LGSs are the lifeblood of the community, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't Magic, so sometimes it is hard to put together even an 8-man in rural areas. But at the same time, if Magic the Gathering place was like, yeah, we're just not going to run Friday Night Magic in the format you've decided, and they're instead going to play the format that a couple of grinders in our local tournament scene want to play, they would lose their OTS status.
Yeah. And also just, it would honestly be sort of ridiculous if a lot of shops didn't run multiple formats for Magic. Basically, shop that runs Magic runs standard knights and draft knights and modern knights. I can't really think of any shop that doesn't do that.
So basically what I'm saying is my experience at NAWCQ was a little disappointing, but I left hopeful. Most of the issues were management focused, and if they can fix the management at large-scale events and provide players a way to the large-scale events via small-scale events at locals and LGSs, then I think we have a recipe for a format with more staying power than Generation Duels. Want to talk about the metagame?
Yeah, I mean, there's only one card in it, so...
Oh my goodness. The metagame has been completely dominated by one card and one skill.
So, I mean, I think we talked in previous months about decks that weren't Tribal Synergy or Amazons, and how the big thing that was barring a lot of those decks from really advancing further up in the meta was the lack of a good generic skill, which is why the more specific skills like Dragon Call and Tribal Synergy really shined back then.
And ho 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 did we get it.
Yeah.
I will say when the remainder of the skills were released after the previous episode, for any of you saying we missed it, I looked at Viral Infection and thought, this is maybe good somewhere. There's probably some corner case where this is playable. Lucky Day, you read, and 30 seconds later you go, this is the best card in the format.
Yeah, so once you take into context the fact that they've printed both Dice Foon and Time Wizard in this format, and that Lucky Day, a skill that lets you decide the result of a coin flip or die roll once per duel exists, that's just absurd, right?
It's obscene. Some of the best decks in this format dump multiple pieces of investment into a single card or monster, which makes having Regeki particularly good. And every deck is playing between 6 and 12 spell and trap cards. And I hear that Heavy Storm Duster is a pretty unfair card.
In a format where there's only 3 cards in the back row, definitely. We also have to consider that Twister was legitimately a meta-dominating card last format, and Dice Spoon with Lucky Day is so much better than Twister. It makes Twister look like Sparks in comparison, with just how many leagues better that it is.
It's absolutely bonkers, and as a result, 3 of the top 5 decks are kind of Lucky Day one tricks, playing the one of the Joey skill, and then enough of a suite that they can find Dice Foon over the course of a long game.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think Time Wizard in most decks is a sideboard piece.
But it's great in the board.
It's a really strong sideboard card, which I think we sort of touched on it a little bit earlier, but there has been an update since, I believe, last time we did the podcast, where now side decks are 6 cards. So it's just so much easier to make a side deck now, because you can do either 2 play sets or 3 sets of 2.
We don't really know.
Well, that's how
it was run at the NAWCQ.
That's how it's been ruled at one of the only big events. So,
but at similar WCQs, they didn't do it. So I don't really know who to go off.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it really depends up to the locals. But in the case that it is that way, there's also just so many more sideboard options now, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Having 6 cards in your sideboard is very flexible.
There's a ton of stuff showing up in boards. We're seeing, the Forceful Checkpoint occasionally squeezes its way in. Additional pieces of Spell and Trap Destruction. Time Wizard, of course. Possessed Dark Soul occasionally makes it in, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the Battle Changers are still getting use across the format. That hasn't really changed much.
So in terms of a tier list, I think we are unanimous between the two of us in thinking that the unarguable best deck is Gravekeepers.
Because, I mean, every deck is using Lucky Day, let's be frank, except Dragon Caller, but Gravekeepers is sort of the best shell for it because it has so much other good support, and it was really just waiting for a good skill. I guess the fact that Lucky Day gives it access to that powerful Dice Spoon gives it better generic cards to complement your suite of Recruiter, Ambusher, and Oracle.
It's frustrating because I wish the Tomb was better. I think the Necro Valley skill is super cool, but you can't pass up the ability to Heavy Storm Duster, and Gravekeeper is such an optimal shell for both recursion and advantage. It has a way to deal with every meta deck. You know, it has Oracle, which beats Blue Eyes. It has occasional interactions where you can ready for intercepting a guy down and then pop the guy. But most importantly, despite being an incredible shell with access to a tribal Call of the Haunted, it has the unmatched ability to play 3 ready for intercepting in the main deck and feel good about it.
Yeah, definitely I think that the strongest decks have the ability to main deck 2 to 3 ready for intercepting without any real problems. The other deck that can do that being what I think we consider the second best deck, which is Relinquished.
I put Relinquished in a tier below Gravekeeper with one other deck that we'll get to in a sec. But more successful builds of Relinquished. I would urge you to check out the 2-time winner on Yugi Bros' profile of Relinquished, which features 2 copies of Ready for Intercepting in a 21-card build. The only other trap is 2 Windstorm of Ataqua. I was on a build with 3 Windstorm, and I cannot tell you how many games I wish that was ready. Almost every single one.
Yeah, I definitely think that while Relinquished is really good, like we predicted last time because of Sonic Bird and Senju being in the deck, it does suffer from the fact that it relies on a ritual monster and there's a low attack cap. So a lot of the time, the fact that Gravekeepers has 1,500 and 1,700 dudes and it can grind just as well with all its floaters and whatnot, makes it, I think, a better pick. And it bricks a bit less just because it doesn't require you to run ritual spells and ritual monsters that require them to be in the same hand to do anything.
I will say Relinquished is the deck in the meta that feels bricky. I mean, it's not bricky, but in Speed Duel terms, it's probably slightly bricky. Occasionally, you will end up with a hand that has the wrong half and the wrong recruiters, and as a result, you'll just be stuck with a bunch of Relinquished for like maybe 2 or 3 turns, which is occasionally enough for Gravekeepers to set up a board that has enough trap cards to out you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's bricky, it's just bricky compared specifically to Gravekeepers. I would say it's probably less bricky than any deck on a tier below it.
That's likely true. The other deck that I think occupies this tier is Amazons. This is what I lost to in the finals of the event that I made it to finals, but it was around. This deck was around. It is seeing play. It is a Lucky Day deck, of course, which means that the top 3 decks we've identified are all Lucky Day, ready for intercepting type builds. And it just aims to use its ability to blank Rite of Spirit with Amazoness Trainee, its ability to access all the same powerful Lucky Day cards and ready for intercepting suites as Gravekeepers, and its occasional ability to destroy monsters and flex Heirloom as an individual piece of removal to steal games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the deck is still good. Definitely Lucky Day being able to let you run actually good cards instead of Harpy Lady is a strict improvement for the deck. Because you don't really run into the problem that Tribal Synergy would run into, where a lot of the times, sure, you're drawing 3 cards, but they're just all bad vanillas, essentially. And also being able to use your own Dice Spoon to shoot the opponent's back row and stop their quick play spell trap move before you push in with an Amazoness play is big in letting you actually stick Heirloom or stick Village.
It feels like a reactive deck that aims to be an anti-meta counter to Gravekeeper, but I don't think it's as successful as it sort of purports to be. Below that, we have Blue Eyes. Have you heard of this deck before?
No, I've never heard anyone say that Blue Eyes is tier 0 in my life.
So we've got Blue Eyes in tier 3, but of course that's also the 4th best deck. I do think Blue Eyes is still good. It put up a respectable showing, not at the NAWCQ, but at some parallel WCQs. It does top, I mean, it sometimes just opens the hand, you know?
I did mention a Relinquished low bricky because sometimes you don't open both halves of the combo. Dragon Haulers actually bricky because the dragon combo works exactly one time and is never going to do anything after that. So if you didn't get all your dragons out the first time, dragon's just useless in your hand after that, pretty much.
There are certainly ways you can change the deck to be more forgiving, but in general, the deck had so few flex slots, the new cards didn't benefit it a ton.
And Ready for Intercepting came out, which essentially stops Flute and makes you lose the game. There's just no way to come back.
I think we've talked about this before, but it's a weird position where you simultaneously want to go first and second. Like, you want to go second so you can, I don't know, attack, plus you get the extra card, but you also want to go first so you can set, like, Champion's Vigilance and not immediately lose to Ready for Intercepting.
It's just in a really tough spot, especially post-board. Time Wizard exists, which just blows the deck completely out of the water because being able to drop Raigeki unless they have Champ's Vigilance, you just lose.
Having said that, we still do have it at the fourth best deck because sometimes you open the hand that does have Dragons and Flute and Lord of D and Champ Vig.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a big definition of a super high ceiling and just a really, really low floor.
And finally, accompanying Blue Eyes in Tier 3, we have Handless. This is maybe a little lower than it should be, but the deck is so inconsistent at putting up results, I have a hard time classifying it as anything less than like the fourth or fifth best deck.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting deck for sure. It's the most interesting deck to me personally.
Oh, by far.
Because it's not a sort of canned archetype. It's a bit more of like a strategy you would have seen in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Of days long gone in, 2003 or whatever.
Strong, perfect circle vibes.
Yeah, or hand attack or whatever, right? The strategy just being that you run Blade Knight and Theban Nightmare, both of which get huge attack pumps when your hand size is low, in combination with the, Viral Infection, I think is the name skill, which lets you drop your hand to send cards to the opponent's deck.
Alongside this, you play a suite of, like, good stuff. Zombina is kind of Call of the Haunted, so you occasionally play her. You get to play all the good battle traps that everyone else is playing, including Ready for Intercepting. One thing that Viral Infection does particularly well is if you call spell, usually discards your opponent's Dice Foons.
Which is really good, especially in Game 1, because most people aren't maining Time Wizards, so that just kills their skill.
So it's fine. Having said that, it doesn't have a way to come back from a huge advantage swing if your opponent, I don't know, drew the Typhoon or the Dice Foon in the opener. It doesn't have the advantage loops that Gravekeepers have. Its recursion is all predicated on monsters dying by battle. There's no comparable Rite of Spirit. And Blade Knight honestly just kind of sucks sometimes.
Yeah, same with Theban Nightmare is even worse, honestly.
I am thoroughly convinced they play Theban Nightmare because it's hilarious. It has nothing to do with the power of the card and everything to do with how funny it is.
Something we also have to consider is that they open with Dice Foon. Viral Infection whiffs, essentially, because it only sends from deck, not from hand.
It is hilarious to go Viral Infection against a relinquished opponent for like 4 and get the copies of the ritual spell and they just lose the game immediately.
Yeah, I mean, they usually play Dice Foon as well in relinquished, though, because on Lucky Day, so
Please let me dream.
theoretically it can help you win if they blow all their Dice Foons out and then don't keep enough ritual spells in the deck, but
Here's what I'll say. It's really good on Dueling Book Ladder.
yeah. And I think it's good. I think it has good potential for growth if we start to see a format evolve beyond every good deck having to run Lucky Day to be competitive.
This deck is, it feels like, maybe one Breaker the Magical Warrior away from being actually extremely strong.
Yeah. I could also potentially see it being maybe better if flip monsters ever became relevant at all. I don't know that will ever happen, but
Oh ho ho ho. I can think of one flip monster that's about to see a lot of play. So there's a ton of new product coming out. I don't think we have any product announced past this, which is a little disconcerting.
and they're pretty short on their product announcement windows. I assume we'll probably get the announcement on the next set later this month, would be my guess. So we are getting 2-ish releases on August 1st for OTS Store, 2nd for everyone else. 2 new starter decks, and a new booster set.
So I guess we'll start with the starter decks. They're Weevil and Rex, everyone's 2 favorite Chunguses. I don't know,
They're goons, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think they have traditionally been popular characters, probably because of the Waking the Dragon arc. Also because I think they're relevant in Duel Links, right? People like them in Duel Links.
Yeah, Weevil, of course, is universally hated in Duel Links. Rex has stints of playability that are very funny. The Abridged series also does them a pretty rare service.
Yeah, that is a rare thing to say with the Abridged series.
Wow. Please do not demonetize me, Little Karib. Do not claim this. This is exactly Meep's opinions. I love all of your content.
It's a 50-50 split.
Anyway, we know almost nothing about the speed decks except for the blurb that's been given to us by Konami.
Yeah, so we have 4 skills, from what I understand, and 2 monsters that are both awful.
Yeah, they're really, really bad. The skills that we've been told exist without any details as to what they are Dinosaur Kingdom and Nightmare Sonic Blast for Rex, and Mind Parasite and Hyper Metamorphosis for Weevil.
And for the cards, we know Serpent Night Dragon, a 2350 vanilla dragon.
Yes! Tell me that's 7 stars.
It is 7 stars.
Yes!
And perfectly ultimate Great Moth.
If you've played Duel Links, you know that the hardest level rank up quest you have to achieve is to summon perfectly ultimate Great Moth.
I can buy it. That sounds believable to me.
There was a long period of time where people didn't know the end quests lines, so they would disenchant their perfectly ultimate Great Moth because they were like, it's bad. And then they'd get to it and it'd be like, you have no way of getting this card back. Start your account over. We have a little bit past speculation. The blurb cues us in with cryptic messages. It says that Rex's Dinosaur Kingdom gives you access to a powerful field spell. What do you think that's going to be?
It's going to be Jurassic World, which is or Kingdom, whatever the one. It's the movie with Chris Pratt. It gives you 200 attack to dinosaurs. It was good in like the first patch of Duel Links.
No, wait, it gives you 300, right?
Oh, does it? Oh, you're right. It does give you 300 because it made Crawling
Jeez.
Dragon number 2 a 1900 meter long 2-headed King Rex.
Oh my goodness. You're such a fake Duel Links fan.
I played Duel Links for exactly long enough to build that deck and then to immediately power creep it, and I quit.
Okay, that's fair. But that might be quite good. I don't know how our dinosaur pool is looking. Pretty bare, I'd imagine.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say it probably won't be good. Just because I think that the attack booster skills were good in early Duel Links because the card pool was very thin and vanilla heavy.
But we're in a post-Lucky Day world.
Right, and I think that even in early speed duels, we already saw that attack booster skills just couldn't really compete with skills that do something, which is why Tribal Synergy and Dragon Caller sort of dominated before this set, and why Lucky Day dominates so much now is because the second that all of those decks where their skill set give 200 attack and defense to your beaters was able to be replaced by a skill that actually does something, every deck took that choice.
And for what it's worth, we had a skill that pumped a relevant archetype, that's Tomb of the Pharaoh, and enabled a Tribal Vanities, and still, that was not enough to make an attack point boosting skill playable.
Yeah, it's just... I don't see Jurassic World being good unless they print, like, Megalo Smasher X or Sabersaurus or something in this set.
God, please.
Right, like, if you're able to normal summon at 2200 or 2300 beater, maybe. Then I could see it, because that would be a real threat that beats over everything, but even then, having access to Dice Spoon and Time Wizard is probably better.
So, Nightmare Sonic Blast says... oh man, this is hard to describe. It says, Nightmare Sonic Blast unlocks the true potential of Serpent Night Dragon to wipe out your opponent's defenses. What the hell does that mean?
So my guess is that it will be a board wipe if you control Serpent Night Dragon, but that's a condition. Unless they print some nutty stuff to cheat it out, you're not getting that card on the board.
I bet it's not even that. I bet it's like destroy all your opponent's spell and trap cards.
I mean, that's arguably better, maybe. I don't know. Either way, it's probably going to be bad unless there's some easy way to cheat out Serpent Knight Dragon.
I will say I spent a whole 5 seconds Googling Nightmare Sonic Blast, and I cannot find any time those words were referenced in the anime or used in conjunction with Serpent Knight Dragon. All I'm finding is Sonic the Hedgehog creepypastas.
I mean, maybe it's a tie-in with Sonic the Hedgehog.
That's actually what the animators are working overtime on, is balancing speed duels.
Yeah, I mean that I'd believe it.
The next ones are Weevils. It says Weevil and his insects are as tricky as ever. Hidden Parasite will send your opponent reeling if they are unprepared. What the hell does that mean?
It's gonna be some kind of parasite skill, but who knows how they're gonna actually implement that, because the Duel Links implementation fundamentally does not work in a paper card game.
It's one of the very few times where Duel Links takes advantage of the fact that they're a digital card game a la Hearthstone and does something cool that you can't do in a physical card game, and they use it to enable the most degenerate burn deck that the world has ever seen.
Yeah, so if it's anything like the Duel Links skill, then it may enable burn decks, which burn is a strategy we didn't really discuss, and it's theoretically a thing. It just doesn't really have enough burn pieces right now. But if the Weevil skill is good enough, I could really see burn becoming a strategy using Mask of the Accursed and whatnot.
I could see Hidden Parasite having to do with flip monsters. We know a little about flip insects coming up soon, but your opponent is unprepared makes me think, like, if they attack into a random face down, your skill triggers and, like, I don't know, you win the game. And then the other one is Hyper Metamorphosis, which it says will accelerate the summon of his perfectly ultimate Great Moth. I should hope so.
Hopefully it makes it take less than 6 turns. I'm excited for this skill, not because it'll be good, but because I want to summon Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth.
It's like the Mako skills. Like, you know the deck is going to be terrible. But
It's for Yu-Gi-Oh! Timmies, just straight up.
it's actually for me. It's just for the 10-minute testing on speed dueling.
Incredible. Yeah, so we can move into some of the cards in the main booster set that will be coming out alongside it. Scars of Battle, which is a Joey Wheeler set.
Is it a Joey set? I mean, we kind of know it's a Joey set, but it also says it's a Bandit Keith set, and it's not like they would put Bandit Keith on the cover.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's going to be like Attack from the Deep where Kaiba is on the cover.
We know there is a Bones skill, a Rex skill, and at least one Bandit Keith skill. Given that Joey's on the cover, there probably has to be a Joey skill.
My guess is going to be 1 Bones, 1 Rex, 1 Joey, 2 Keith.
Sounds reasonable.
We don't know too many cards from this set so far, but we do know the Bones skill and the name of the Bones skill and the name of the Rex skill. The Bones skill being Servants of the Fallen King, which I have an educated hunch has something to do with Skull Servants.
It's extremely subtle, but I think if you examine the intricacies of Konami's logic, you will see that they say that it sends zombie monsters to the graveyard in the blurb, so it's gotta be Skull Servant support.
Yeah, the real question is, will it send zombies or just Skull Servants? If it sends just Skull Servants, that's cute. If it sends any zombie, that might actually be good. That does tie into the fact that they're releasing Book of Life in this set.
Oh my god. That's insane, right?
No, Book of Life is a very real card, especially when one of the top decks is Gravekeepers, the other being Relinquished. Being able to banish your opponent's Sphere Creepo before they Ritual Summon, very good. Being able to banish their Gravekeeper before they can Rite of Spirit it back, also very good.
That sounds good, but in reality, because there's no main phase 2, the Sphere Karibo will likely always be in graveyard, and because Rite of Spirit is a trap, it's not gonna fire the way you want super often.
Yeah, I mean, it could deny future uses of both of those.
And for what it's worth, that's the upside. The main effect of the card is that it's Monster Reborn.
Yeah, definitely. I think having Spell Speed 1 Revival, this is the first time we've had that, right? It really depends a lot on what the other zombies we get in this set are, though, because right now the zombie pool is still a bit thin.
It's hard to evaluate for sure, because a lot of the reason Spell Speed 1 Revival is good is because you can go to battle phase, do some whack attacks, and then bring back the guys who died in battle. We can't do that here.
It's also because you can use it to cheat out high-quality monsters, which, as it stands right now, there really aren't a lot of high-quality monsters in the zombie type.
Do not sleep on Serpent Dragon.
I mean, Serpent Dragon.
Yeah, it's going to be the skill that sends Skull Servants to Graveyard. You'll send 2 of them. Double Book of Life. Tribute them both Serpent Knight Dragon. That's it.
Oh, but how are you using the Serpent Knight Dragon skill? I asked you that.
Well, Serpent Knight Dragon is its own reward.
That's true, I guess.
We also have Barrel Dragon. That's a card. Speaking of cards that are super high impact and require 2 summons.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it with Lucky Day and wipe your opponent's board. You can do it, and it's on a huge body, so you can actually follow up with an OTK after maybe.
Extremely huge flavor fail, though, to be honest. Having the Joey skill enable the Bandit Keith card.
Yeah, we'll see what the Bandit Keith skills are, if any of those cheated out, and or enable it better than the Joey skill does.
Night Beam is in this set.
I think that Night Beam will be good. It'll be a sideboard staple, probably.
It will be better than Dust Tornado.
Dust Tornado versus Night Beam will come in and out depending on how many face-up spells are around, but just from how the format looks to be shaping up, set back row is the way to go, so Night Beam is probably going to be the pick over Dust Tornado, just because spell speed 1. They can't chain Windstorm to it, which is big, or Ready for Intercepting or anything, right?
Dark Red Enchanter is in this set. This card's going to be bad. Really not good.
When it is normal summon, you put 2 spell counters on it. Each time a spell is activated, place 1 spell counter on this card. When that spell resolves, it gets 300 attack for each. And you can remove 2 spell counters once per turn to discard a random card from the opponent's hand. Also, did I forget to mention it's level 6?
And Dark Red Enchanter was already like fringe playable in early Duel Links and just like bottomed out immediately. Mask of Darkness, I have no idea if it's good or not. It's like Magician of Faith, but good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Magician of Faith, but the main thing we complain about with Magician of Faith is that there's really not that many good spells, since the only good spell people use is Dice Boon, which you can use exactly 1 time. That's not true for traps, so there's a lot of good traps. Windstorm, Kunai, Ready for Intercepting, Dust Tornado, right?
But the issue with Mask of Darkness has always been, boy, Windstorm is a lot less good when they know you have Windstorm.
Yeah, also Windstorm's a lot less good when you have to spend a whole turn setting something, flipping something up to recycle the Windstorm. It's very slow. And Speed Duels, despite being a lower powered format, isn't that slow of a format in terms of putting guys on the board.
Speed is in the name!
It is in the name, that's true.
The second to last, we've got Metal Morph, and you know what that means.
Maybe this was like a really good card for people who didn't know how to deck build back in like 2004.
For what it's worth, I think Metal Morph is actually going to be quite playable. I mean, we live in a format where Kunai is super playable, but I really wish they hadn't printed this. It's just a card that causes kind of a ruling nightmare. And I hate that they're introducing cards that are screwy in terms of the rules into the format. Like, it's an equip trap, effectively, which doesn't make any sense. And then it gains the attack and defense in a way that makes it hard to calculate. So, I don't know. I wish they hadn't printed this, but whatever.
Yeah, I think it's because it's a really iconic Bandit Keith card that they felt they had to print it.
And more importantly, it means we are getting Red Eye's Metal Dragon.
Oh, I mean, that's, I think, sort of a given in a Joey Bandit Keith set that we'll get a terrible card like Red Eye's Metal Dragon.
Another card that is a really fun ruling experience that activates in deck.
Yeah. I think with Metal Morph, maybe it'll be good just because the fact that it buffs 300 with how small the difference often is between the attack of monsters, that 300 can actually put you over something, and then on your turn you can swing for big damage with the buff that happens when you declare an attack.
No, I think this card will be exceptionally playable.
Then we can get to the last skill, which is Double Evolution Pill.
Yes! Now, notice that this isn't the card Double Evolution Pill, which makes me a little upset because it means it's going to be worse.
Best case scenario, it is the card Double Evolution Pill put on a skill.
It's okay, we just don't have a pool of big chunguses, and we won't know what our pool of big chunguses is until we...
Yeah, until we have more set spoilers.
No, I have a hunch. My hunch is that, like we were speaking about before the show, it's going to be a reference to Rex's original half gimmick where his dinosaurs would evolve into dragons, and it will turn your terrible dinosaurs into like Red Eyes and Serpent Knight and like level 7 unplayable garbage dragons.
Maybe, although it being that would maybe run into the fact that they're already making a whole Serpent Knight Dragons guild that's separate.
Didn't stop him from making 3 water skills that all conflicted with each other. And finally, let's check out Tournament Pack 2. I didn't know this had been going on for long enough to get a second tournament pack.
This one's not coming out until October, so it's a pretty slow rate that they're coming out with them, but...
So you've got your ultra rare swordswoman, pretty good. Your King of the Skull Servants, which is an ultra rare. Your super rare, ready for intercepting. But additionally...
confirmation of Maneater Bug, which will be either in the starter deck or in the main booster set.
And because there's no Weevil skill, I think it's normal to assume that it's going to be in the deck. A super rare Maneater Bug makes me think it's going to be a common, which is interesting because it could definitely occupy the ultra slot in the deck. I mean, Maneater Bug seems really playable.
Yeah, I think Maneater Bug will be decent enough for sure. I don't know that it'll be like meta obliterating or anything like that, but not a whole lot of monster removal makes it good.
I will say this, I expect it to have a similar effect on the metagame as Yomi's ship did, which is reasonable but not really present in any of the top decks.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's it. That's all the news that's fit to print.
Yeah, I think we'll probably be back in a few weeks, hopefully, once we get spoilers for the new set.
Oh yeah, once we know we have visual confirmation that all of the cards in the starter decks are garbage, we'll run back here and let you know it.
Definitely.
All right, anything else you want to say to let the fine people at home know?
I don't know, just keep trying to support Speed Duels. The only way the format's ever going to work is if people actually go to shops and try and get people to play it. As far as I understand, the format is still relatively cheap. The market doesn't fluctuate as much as the normal Yu-Gi-Oh market just because less people play the game and there's just not that much product right now, so what product there is more widely available. So I think it's a decent, fun, cheaper alternative to the TCG, which I think can get a bit overwhelming and a bit expensive at times.
Yeah, if you at any point in your life have been a Yu-Gi-Oh player and then stopped because like you had to read a pendulum card at gunpoint or something, this is the format for you. The top decks are literally $10. Gravekeepers is $10 or less even if you buy it in singles. It is decidedly easy to sit down and learn and deceptively hard to master the intricacies of. Bug your LGS until they run events. Ask your opponents at actual advanced tournaments if they want to play speed duels in between rounds. Support the individuals on YouTube who are putting out speed duel content. Yugi Bros, of course, is consistently putting stuff out. Pick the brains of individuals who have shown to be consistently good at the format, like Jordan Palmer, and help us build the infrastructure necessary to make this last.
Yu-Gi-Oh needs another format. All TCGs that go for as long... Any TCG that goes for as long as Yu-Gi-Oh really should have more than just the one way to play the game. And I think that having an option that isn't just kitchen table Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's officially sanctioned and it feels and plays different by design, is good.
One thing I'll say that concerned me is I saw a comment on a Robbie Cole video, I think. Shouts out to Robbie Cole for putting the entire attack from the deep box in your mouth. Excellent. It says, Speed Duel is heading towards the new flavor of Yu-Gi-Oh! I play it because it's easier for me to learn slowly than learn the current format, but Duel Links started slow, and Duel Links now is just TCG but different. And I hope that does not happen. Everything we've heard from Konami and the individuals behind Speed Duels has been the TCG exists. This is meant to be a deviation from that. But looking at past attempts to make a secondary format in something like Duel Links that has effectively just become another game as complicated and as non-interactive as the TCG can certainly set off alarm bells in your head. I am asking you, for the first and last time I ever will on this channel, to trust Konami. I am sure they will not make this mistake a third time.
Yeah, I think a big reason why that happens is because Duel Links started incorporating a lot of normal TCG archetypes in. And that comes with a lot of normal TCG baggage, and so far Duel Links has been sticking to the anime stuff. And judging by the fact that releases are way less frequent in Speed Duels than they are in Duel Links, where you get a new set, like monthly or something like that, or more than monthly, you run out of anime cards to print at a certain point, so you have to start printing just whatever the fuck, right? But in Speed Duels, they're printing a set every, 3 months? So 4 sets a year, with maybe 4 starter decks a year. The card pool per year is just so much smaller. We're talking maybe 300 to 400 cards a year, as opposed to thousands of cards a year. So that gives a lot more room to just print anime stuff, which is way, way easier to balance, I think.
And for what it's worth, the trajectory has already split between Duel Links. Duel Links never had skills enabling entire decks, with a couple of particular exceptions like Harpy's Hunting Ground. It's always been you pick a skill that is pretty good, or a skill that fits the outcome of the deck, and then you play a pile of good stuff a significant amount of the time. Even when decks were warped around an entire skill, they were something like an attack boosting skill or Harpy's Hunting Ground. The trajectory of Speed Duels has been to print skills that render completely unplayable cards, like the Legendary Fisherman, entire recognized archetypes. And that is different enough that I have faith that it will continue to remain different. So, as a conclusion, bug everyone you know and you can think of, consume as much Speed Duel content as possible, and keep the faith. Got anything else to say, Meep?
Just that we're the Speed Lords. Stay speedy.